The radical mayor. No one saw it coming. Not the consultants. Not the donors. Not even Andrew Cuomo. When Zohran Mamdani stepped onto the stage at the corner of 125th and Malcolm X Boulevard, the crowd didn't just cheer. They erupted. Not because he had money. Not because he had power. But because, for the first time in a generation, someone told New York the truth it already knew. You deserve a city that doesn't price you out, doesn't police you into fear, and doesn't feed the billionaires while your kids eat from corner stores. The words echoed across Harlem, Brooklyn, Queens. A city long fractured by inequality had found a symbol, and the establishment wasn't ready. 3 hours later, former Governor Andrew Cuomo sat in the back room of an upscale midtown bar, glass half full, face unreadable. "He beat you," said a woman across from him. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Cuomo's lip curled. "He didn't beat me. He hacked the machine." AOC leaned forward. "He didn't hack anything. He just showed people it was broken." Meanwhile, in a downtown war room lit by cold blue monitors, former NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton read a confidential memo. Mamdani's policy proposals will lead to a projected 18% officer attrition within 24 months. NYPD morale already compromised. Contingency planning advised. Below that, a handwritten note. He's not just changing policy. He's changing belief. Mamdani didn't rest. His campaign wasn't built on favors, it was built on fire. Free public transit. City-run grocery stores. Rent freezes. Childcare for all. And a $30 per hour minimum wage by 2030. "I'm not radical," he told a crowd in the Bronx. "What's radical is asking families to work 3 jobs and still go hungry." The right-wing media struck hard. Fox News ran a segment titled, "NYC elects a communist?" And on Truth Social, Donald Trump posted, "Zohran Mamdani, 100% communist. NYC is lost. He's worse than AOC." The post went viral. So did Mamdani's calm video response. "Donald Trump says I'm dangerous. If believing housing is a human right is dangerous, then I accept the label." The clip was retweeted over 1 million times. But behind the surge, the storm brewed. Threats began pouring into Mamdani's office. Anonymous letters, voice messages dripping with xenophobia. CARE reported a 5-fold increase in anti-Muslim posts after his primary win. That night, as Mamdani walked out of a late community forum, his security team tightened formation. A man across the street held a sign that read, "You don't belong here." Mamdani stopped, turned, and said into the cameras, "This city belongs to all of us, especially the ones they told to leave." The next morning, a sealed folder landed on a desk at City Hall. Inside, a detailed playbook marked, "Opposition Strategy, Mamdani Containment Plan," stamped in red. Prepared for Mayor Eric Adams. Mamdani's America. Mayor Eric Adams wasn't a man easily rattled. He had weathered pandemics, police protests, and press scandals. But as he stared at the red-stamped folder marked Mamdani Containment Plan, something in his gut shifted. The dossier was detailed, surgical. Pages of internal polling, opposition research, risk assessments. One memo was titled, "How to Neutralize a Narrative." It wasn't about debates. It was about erasure. Adams closed the folder and looked up at his chief of staff. "Tell Bratton I want options. Legal if possible. Quiet if not." Meanwhile, in Queens, Mamdani sat in the back of a corner diner, laptop open, hoodie up. His team of grassroots organizers, students, baristas, single moms, were plotting the next phase. "We need borough-wide mobilization," said Janelle, his lead field coordinator. "They're going to come after you. You need protection." "I need progress," Mamdani replied. "Protection comes from people, not fences." He glanced at a tab on his screen. A breaking story. Mayor Adams calls Mamdani platform dangerously unrealistic in closed-door briefing. And just below it, a leaked quote. "This kid thinks he's Che Guevara with a MetroCard." Mamdani smiled, then posted the quote with the caption, "You're damn right I ride the train." It trended in under an hour. But the war wasn't just online. Within days, Mamdani's campaign faced an IRS audit. An anonymous ethics complaint was filed with the NYC Board of Elections. 3 of his largest grassroots donors had their businesses randomly inspected by city code enforcement. At a press conference, a reporter asked point-blank, "Do you believe Mayor Adams is trying to sabotage your campaign?" Mamdani didn't blink. "I believe power protects itself. I believe justice makes it uncomfortable." In City Hall, the situation escalated. Adams met privately with NYPD Intelligence Division. "They're building something bigger than a campaign," said the deputy commissioner. "It's a movement. It's got funding pipelines, digital infrastructure, even legal teams." Adams frowned. "And a media shield named AOC. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had officially endorsed Mamdani. She hit the Sunday shows hard. They're calling him radical for believing no one should go bankrupt buying groceries. That says more about the system than it does about Zohran." By week's end, Mamdani had surged in polls. His name was now tied with Adams in early runoff models. And that terrified the establishment. Late one night, Mamdani received a call from an unknown number. "This is off record," said the voice. Older, measured. "I served 3 mayors. I've seen reformers come and go. What's your point? You're not fighting a system. You're threatening a class. And they don't lose quietly." Then the line went dead. Mamdani sat in the dark for several minutes, then opened a new Google Doc. At the top he typed, "Address to the city, if they try to break me." Across the East River, in a dim-lit government office, a sealed envelope was passed from a city official to a well-dressed man in sunglasses. Inside, a confidential report on Mamdani's family, foreign contacts, and travel history. Marked, Tier 3 National Security Review. Preliminary. The walls of power don't crack with hammers. They creak under the weight of silence. At 3:42 a.m., the confidential dossier on Zohran Mamdani arrived on the desk of DHS liaison Eric Klein, a former counterterrorism analyst with no love for idealists. The envelope was unmarked. The file inside watermarked with only one word: preliminary. Inside were scans of Mamdani's travel logs to South Africa, India, and a brief stint in Palestine during college. Photos of community protests, excerpts from a podcast interview where he'd said, "I believe the fight for justice crosses borders. Capitalism doesn't stop at customs." A yellow sticky note on the last page read, "Flagged for ideological risk assessment. Per directive, monitor digital footprint. No direct engagement without authorization." Klein didn't hesitate. He opened a case file. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn, Mamdani sat at a kitchen table cluttered with notepads, tea mugs, and voter contact lists. His eyes were tired, but his voice was steady. "I need to give them the story before they try to write one for me," he told Janelle. "We go on offense." They drafted a speech titled "The People's New York," a direct challenge to the Adams administration and what Mamdani called the machine's shadow rule. Across the city, young organizers posted flyers, TikToks, and murals with one message: Zohran belongs. It was everywhere. Bus stops, storefronts, high school lockers, even Wall Street bathroom stalls. And yet, inside Mamdani's phone, texts delayed, voicemails dropped, signal glitches. Janelle raised her head. "You think they're listening?" He didn't answer. At City Hall, Mayor Adams read a memo from the Office of Emergency Management. Activist disruptions likely to increase. Social cohesion ratings in East Brooklyn at 12-month low. Recommend increased NYPD visibility. Adams scrawled across the top. Visible isn't enough. Strategic pressure. Legal pressure. By Thursday, the mainstream media had caught the scent. A New York Post headline read, "Rising Radical. Mamdani's foreign ties raise eyebrows." A subhead followed, "Family business in Uganda linked to anti-colonial political circles." Cable anchors debated, was he an activist or a Trojan horse? Mamdani went live that evening. Calm, direct, no teleprompter. When you come from a family that's fled dictatorship and war, you grow up knowing what injustice tastes like. I didn't come here to be polite. I came here to make sure no one else grows up tasting the same. The clip aired on MSNBC, CNN, and, surprisingly, got shared by Joe Rogan with the caption, "Not your typical politician." But across the river, in a nondescript federal facility, Klein met with a man from Langley. "You really think he's dangerous?" Klein asked. The man shrugged. "He doesn't need to be. The story only needs to feel dangerous." They stared at a heat map of social engagement across NYC. Mamdani's color zone pulsed like a nerve. That night, as Mamdani returned home from a community town hall, a black SUV paused half a block behind him. Lights off. Inside, no movement. He stared at it for a long moment, then walked inside. At 2:03 a.m., a burner phone lit up in an FBI field office. A message appeared. Activist linked to group classified in internal review as disruptive to financial order. Proceed with digital interception. Do not alert NYPD.
Sender, classified.
Recipient, Domestic Counterintelligence, NYC Division. By sunrise, his phone was no longer just his. Every keystroke, every word whispered over encrypted calls, every draft email, copied, scanned, logged. The order came without judicial review. Under Section 702, flagged for national financial stability implications. Mamdani's life became metadata, but he didn't know that yet. He was too busy writing a revolution. At 9 a.m., Zohran stood in front of the City College Rotunda, speaking to over 2,000 students and workers. The podium was makeshift, 2 milk crates and a mic taped to a broken stand. "We live in a city where the stock market hits record highs while half the Bronx lives paycheck to paycheck. Where billionaires buy elections, but can't buy empathy. So let me say it plain. If justice is radical, then radical is what I'll be." The crowd roared. Someone in the front row wept. Behind them, a NYPD surveillance van quietly recorded everything. Mayor Adams watched the speech on mute from his office. "His voice is too clean," he muttered. "People believe him. That's a problem." Across from him, Deputy Mayor Angela Chu tapped her pen. "We can push the foreign narrative harder. Quietly plant doubt. Tie him to outside funding ideological groups. Something noisy enough to scare moderates." Adams nodded. "Let them wonder if he's loyal." At the same time, in a Langley satellite server farm outside Reston, Virginia, Zohran Mamdani's cloud backup was decrypted. One flagged file caught their attention. The Doctrine of Shared Cities, a white paper outlining a long-term vision for municipal socialism, public housing trusts, debt strikes, and democratic labor zones. The internal CIA note read, "While legally non-threatening, the ideological intensity of this material requires strategic observation. Risk, political destabilization if amplified." Below that, suggested response, "Encourage controlled media counter-narrative." That week, a series of op-eds flooded local papers, all from independent voices, academics, former city staff, retired NYPD, all questioning Mamdani's platform. Utopia isn't a budget plan. From Queens to chaos. Why Mamdani's plan won't work. A mayor with a mandate to burn it all down? At first, his campaign dismissed it. Then a billboard appeared on the BQE. Zohran's NYC, $30 per hour, $0 for safety. It didn't carry a campaign tag, but they knew who paid for it. Janelle, frustrated, slammed her laptop shut. "They're burying us in noise." Mamdani sipped cold coffee. "Then we break the silence." He drafted a new speech for his upcoming rally in Flatbush. "No more playing nice. They're scared of me because I can't be bought. Because I don't owe a thing to Wall Street, to lobbyists, or to the people who think the NYPD is a solution to poverty. I don't fear their power. They fear yours." But that night, something changed. His campaign email account went dark. His backup phone wouldn't connect. And his laptop wiped. No warning.
No trace. No fingerprints.
Just a black screen. Then, in green letters, This is not your system. Remember that. At 4:11 a.m., a file was uploaded anonymously to a server in Iceland. It contained a detailed digital footprint of U.S. surveillance programs tied to Mamdani's campaign. The title, NYC Protocol, Watch the Democrat, and in the corner, blurred but real, the seal of the NSA. It hit the internet like a bomb. NYC Protocol, Watch the Democrat. The headline wasn't from The Intercept. It wasn't even foreign. It came from a whistleblower site registered in the U.S., dropped anonymously at 6:47 a.m., complete with screenshots, server trails, and internal agency communications. Within hours, #SurveilMamdani was trending. The government denied everything. The FBI issued a vague no comment. The NSA claimed standard misinformation activity. But the public wasn't buying it. Mamdani woke up to 374 unread messages and a city that was suddenly fully awake. The file wasn't just a bombshell, it was proof. Proof that a sitting mayor, in coordination with federal agencies, had deployed national security tools against a lawful political candidate. Him. Janelle burst into the campaign office, phone still in hand. CNN wants you live in 10 minutes. New York One is calling it the biggest domestic surveillance leak since Snowden. What do? Zohran stood in the center of the room, completely still. Then, we don't defend ourselves. We go on the offensive. At 10:32 a.m., Mamdani appeared on the steps of City Hall, the same place where Adams had once promised a new era of transparency. Let's be clear, I was spied on. Not because I broke the law, but because I dared to challenge the people who write it for themselves. This isn't just about me. This is about what happens when someone like you, someone born in a working-class apartment, someone with a name they can't pronounce, decides to run for power. The press erupted. Even the New York Times ran the headline, Spied on or Silenced? NYC's Democratic Crisis. Inside City Hall, the walls were cracking. Deputy Mayor Chu paced the carpet. They can't trace the leak to us. But if the feds don't take the hit, we're cooked. Adams sat in silence. Then, finally, let them have the scapegoat. By sunset, Eric Klein was placed on administrative leave. The official story, unauthorized access of political data systems, unofficially burned. That night, Mamdani's rally in Flatbush swelled beyond expectations. Over 12,000 people, some climbing onto bus stops, kids waving signs that read, I am Zohran. He stood beneath floodlights and raised a single piece of paper, a printed screenshot of the surveillance order. They watched us because they're afraid of what we're building. But here's the thing about movements, they don't stop when you target the leader. They multiply. The chant began from the back, then forward, thousands chanting, We are the system now. Far uptown, in a luxury penthouse on the Upper West Side, a meeting took place. 3 men, 1 former mayor, 1 sitting governor, 1 billionaire developer. Whiskey glasses clinked. We need to shut this down before it hits November. The developer leaned forward. There's only one way left. The room went quiet. Then the governor spoke. Disqualify him. Find the hook. He's too clean? Make it messy. At midnight, a forged financial record was uploaded to a darknet server under Mamdani's name, linking him to an overseas account in Qatar. By dawn, it would hit the headlines. And this time, they wouldn't be asking questions. They'd be demanding answers. They struck at 6:02 a.m. Breaking. Foreign money? Leaked docs link Mamdani to secret Qatari bank account. The headline was everywhere. Fox, CNN, even MSNBC hedged it with alarming if true. The alleged evidence. A wire transfer from Al-Haq Charitable Group to a holding account in Mamdani's name, $1.7 million. Supposedly dated 2 months before the primary. Of course, it was fake. But in politics, the accusation is the conviction. And the timeline? Perfect. In a midtown campaign office that now looked more like a crisis bunker, Mamdani stood in front of a screen displaying the leak. This is manufactured, Janelle hissed. There is no Al-Haq account. We've never even. I know, he said calmly. But the narrative moves faster than the truth. He turned to face the team. So we make this moment the fight itself. Mayor Adams held a press briefing by noon. No direct accusations, of course. Just carefully chosen phrases. If any candidate has received illegal foreign contributions, it must be investigated thoroughly and without delay. New Yorkers deserve integrity. Reporters followed up with urgency. Adams shook his head solemnly. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm protecting the office. But behind the scenes, the strategy was clear. Bury him in legal fog. Force him into defending. Stall momentum. Cut him off from donors. From trust. Within 24 hours, 3 major endorsements were suspended. 2 campaign vendors pulled out. And a congressional candidate in Manhattan rescinded support, pending verification of troubling reports. Cable news ran side-by-side clips. Mamdani's fiery speeches versus flashing text. Qatari funds? Even allies grew silent. Mamdani released a statement that night.
No apologies. No retreat.
We will not play defense against lies. They are weaponizing your fear to protect their control. My campaign has nothing to hide. We've published every contribution, every donor, every penny. You can see it. What you can't see. The fear in their eyes as we rise. But it wasn't enough. The Board of Elections opened a formal inquiry. The FBI announced a preliminary review, and the DNC stopped returning his calls. In a brownstone in Fort Greene, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took a call from her top advisor. They're trying to cut his legs, she said flatly. What do? We get louder. She posted a 3-minute video that night, no music, no edits. They're not afraid that Zohran took foreign money. They're afraid he didn't. Because if a working-class Muslim socialist can win New York without their money, their gatekeeping is dead. That's what they're trying to kill. The video hit 4 million views in 8 hours. Meanwhile, far outside the city, a server in Geneva pinged back. The real origin of the fake Qatari wire? A private contractor tied to a security firm with deep State Department ties. The order: untraceable disinfo. High-level sign-off. Domestic use approved. The initials at the bottom of the request. EA. Back in New York, Mamdani ended his press blackout. He called a rally for Sunday night, Union Square. No stage.
No script.
Only a mic and a simple message scrawled across a banner. You don't need their permission. As the rally began, Mamdani's team received a tip from a whistleblower. They're preparing a federal indictment. Not because it's real, because by the time it's dismissed, the election will be over. The plan was brilliant in its cruelty. Not conviction, just chaos. Not a sentence, just suspicion. The Department of Justice issued a formal notice of investigation into Zohran Mamdani's campaign finances. No charges, no press conference, just a quiet statement from a DOJ spokesperson on a Friday afternoon, the classic news dump window. At this time, we are reviewing publicly available allegations regarding foreign financial activity related to the Mamdani campaign. It was enough. The words federal investigation splashed across Chirins like blood on marble. By Sunday morning, even liberal media outlets were asking, is Mamdani the progressive Giuliani? Union Square overflowed that night. 50,000 people packed in. No stage.
No teleprompter.
Just Zohran in the middle, surrounded by a human ring of volunteers. He took the mic. They tried to jail Eugene Debs. They tried to blacklist Paul Robeson. They tried to erase Angela Davis. Now they come for me, not because I broke the law, but because I broke their illusion. I don't belong to Wall Street. I don't belong to the NYPD. I belong to you. The crowd chanted. You, you, you. The moment went viral again. But the institutions weren't listening. They were tightening. Mayor Adams, behind closed doors, met with senior DNC officials and an emissary from the White House. The city is ungovernable if he wins, Adams said. You think he'll negotiate with us? He'll burn the playbook. One DNC advisor leaned forward. You need to win, period. We'll take care of the rest. And then he passed a note, a list of donors, judges, a strategy to flood Mamdani's campaign with injunctions, subpoenas, and noise. Mamdani's campaign received 4 separate legal notices in one day. A labor dispute from a former volunteer, a zoning inquiry into their campaign headquarters, a retroactive review of ad payments by the FCC, and a compliance irregularity from the State Ethics Board. Janelle stared at the stack of paper. This is war. Mamdani looked up.
No.
This is fear. But the public? The public was waking up. In the Bronx, barbershops debated justice reform. In Bushwick, kids painted murals of Mamdani in defiance. In Manhattan, a Yale law grad quit his job and joined the campaign. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went live from Congress with fire in her voice. If Zohran falls, we all do. Because this isn't just about one race. This is about whether democracy is still a public tool or a private club. The base surged. Donations spiked. And finally, the New York Times published an op-ed titled, "Is Mamdani what democracy actually looks like?" But just as the campaign recovered, another blow landed. A respected liberal news outlet confirmed, falsely, that Mamdani once consulted for a foreign NGO flagged by the Treasury Department.
No retracción. No pause.
Just more smoke. Mamdani stood in front of cameras and said, "They're trying to exhaust you, confuse you, shame you into silence. But we don't scare easy. And we don't back down." That clip was posted at 11:07 p.m. By 11:14, an anonymous source inside the DOJ leaked one word to Politico. Indictment. At 6:01 a.m. the next day, federal marshals knocked on Zohran Mamdani's apartment door. Inside, he stood calm, tie undone, holding a small red copy of the U.S. Constitution. He opened the door and said, "Let the country see this." The handcuffs were symbolic. There were no charges.
No eran meant.
No trial. Just a temporary detainment for investigative purposes. Just long enough for every news outlet in America to air the footage on loop. Mayoral candidate Mamdani detained by federal agents. Breaking. Socialism meets the FBI. Is Zohran Mamdani a threat to national security? No matter how clean his record was, no matter how fast his release came, the damage was done. That was the point. He was out by nightfall.
No apology. No explanation.
Just a thin man in a borrowed hoodie walking out of federal custody with his fist raised. No sound. Just the city around him roaring. Outside the courthouse, thousands had gathered. Not with signs of protest. With signs that read, "You tried to arrest hope." Back at Campaign HQ, the team moved fast. They built a new ad. Just 15 seconds. Zohran, face lit by the glare of squad car lights, voice calm. "They put me in cuffs because I refused to kneel. But I wasn't alone in that cell. I had every worker, every immigrant, every tenant, every dreamer with me." The video went nuclear. Even apolitical Americans started asking, "Who is this guy?" Meanwhile, Mayor Adams met privately with Governor Hochul. "We overplayed it," he admitted. Hochul didn't blink. "Then you finish it before he wins." In the final week of the campaign, the establishment unleashed everything. A coordinated media blitz calling Mamdani chaotic. Secret donors funding billboards. Zohran means zero safety. PAC-funded robocalls warning seniors he'd abolish the NYPD. A rogue op-ed falsely accusing him of sympathizing with foreign militants. But the people were done listening to ghosts. The polling gap narrowed, then flipped. And on the eve of the election, Mamdani stood on the steps of Queens Borough Hall, voice hoarse, jacket frayed, flanked by teachers, janitors, EMTs, nurses. "They called me a threat. But you all know the real threat was silence. They called me dangerous. I say, so is poverty. So is hunger. So is a system that makes the city unaffordable and then blames you for it. Tomorrow, you don't just vote for me. You vote for yourselves." Election night, the numbers came in fast, then stalled, then surged. By 11:48 p.m., it was official. Zohran Mamdani, mayor-elect of New York City. He had beaten Eric Adams. He had beaten the system. He had rewritten the rules. Somewhere in Washington, an unnamed intelligence officer received a final update. Subject Z. Mamdani, transition confirmed. Inauguration preparations underway.
Surveillance discontinuée.
The reply came quickly. No further action. We lost. But history has a long memory. And in a quiet office in Queens, Zohran sat alone. He opened a drawer, pulled out the original threat memo, the one labeled Mamdani Containment Plan. He smiled, then scribbled in black marker across the front. Contain this. 3 months later, in a coffee shop in Detroit, a 19-year-old barista filled out a local election form. For candidate you support, she wrote, someone like Zohran, and the revolution, quiet, steady, undeniable, began again.